In the last stream, we were working on upgrading our power system with these new magmatic dynamos that are receiving lava from the magma crucible that is breaking down netherrack that we're receiving from our basic EMC link, and that has been providing power to all of our machines since the last stream, and I'm happy to report that things are still chugging along quite nicely. We're at 2.3 million EMC in the top left there, and we're still going. We're still making more of these basic mechanical crystals, and EMC is still coming in. We were also working on getting steel up and running using the coke oven and the blast furnace, although we did figure out towards the end of the stream that this probably isn't the best way of making steel going forward, because it turns out we can make steel using the pyrolyzer and the induction smelter from thermal expansion. And I did a little bit of testing between streams, and even if we were to upgrade the crude blast furnace here to the improved blast furnace, and even if we were to use both of the blast furnace preheaters to make the blast furnace faster with power, it's still not faster than the induction smelter, even at its base speed. And of course, the induction smelter can be made faster with integral components and with additional augments later on down the line. So we're probably going to tear down both the coke oven and the blast furnace at some point fairly soon here to make room for the automation of the next tier of mechanical crystal, that being the regular mechanical crystal. But before we get started with that, I do want to take a bit of a detour, because between streams, I was going to go ahead and manually craft up a lot of thermal expansion machines, because if we're going to automate the crafting of these regular mechanical crystals, we need quite a few more multi-servo presses, we need a bunch of induction smelters, we need a bunch of redstone furnaces, we need a lot of thermal expansion machines. And my plan initially was to go ahead and just craft up a bunch of machine frames, craft up a bunch of the redstone flux coils, and try and make all of those machines ready for the start of this episode. But then I thought about it, and I thought instead, let's do a little bit of work on getting a better storage system in place and potentially getting some auto crafting in place so that going forward, we don't have to keep manually crafting the machine frames and the flux coils every single time we want a new machine. So to make that happen, we're going to use the Pretty Pipes mod. And the item that we're after is this guy, the crafting terminal. This is a super nifty item that's going to allow us to access all of the items and all of the blocks in our chests and eventually in our storage drawers from one singular location, and it's going to allow us to request and craft with those items in kind of a similar way to how you would craft with something like a refined storage or an applied energistics 2 system, albeit in a bit of a toned down way. So to make this, we need 3 redstone, 1 crafting table, and the expensive part is the item terminal. The item terminal requires 2 ender pearls, which we haven't yet unlocked, 2 diamonds, 2 blocks of iron, 1 regular chest, and then 1 high retrieval module and 1 high extraction module. These are made with the previous tier medium extraction and medium retrieval modules, and then those are made with the first tier, the low extraction and low retrieval modules, but I don't think any of those are going to be too difficult. They are a little expensive. They require a lot of redstone, a lot of gold, and a fair few diamonds, but we do have 2.4 million EMC, and so I think all of those should be craftable. And so the only thing we don't have is ender pearls. Thankfully, that seems like something we should be able to fix, because last stream we did manage to make our first regular mechanical essence and our first regular mechanical crystal, and so now if we go to tier 3, we've actually unlocked this quest right here. It says you managed to create an improved version of your mechanical essence, but you feel it can still be made better, and you're going to find out how. This gives us glowstone, uraninite, apatite, osmium, and expanded thermal, which is a quest tier for reinforced and resonant integral components, which increase thermal expansion machines by, I believe, 3x and 4x respectively. So you can make the thermal expansion machines up to 4 times faster than their base speed if you get that highest tier resonant integral component. Unfortunately, it does require a higher tier mechanical essence, and so we are a little ways away from being able to make that highest tier, but we should soon have what it takes to set up these autocraft, these second tier reinforced integral components and make the machines 3 times faster than their base. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's make sure, as per usual, that we put all of these items into the transmutation table. While we're putting things in our transmutation table, people in the YouTube comments did remind me that I did not put my kelp in at the end of the last stream. So let's do that as well, just to make sure that we can always get more kelp should we need it. And now that we've unlocked these quests here, we've also unlocked the ability to make the Philosopher's Stone. This requires 4 glowstone, 4 redstone, and 1 diamond. Glowstone we can now get from our transmutation table, so let's take 4 of that. Redstone we should have in abundance, we totally do. Let's take 4 of those. And then diamonds we of course also have lying around. Boom, and boom, there is our Philosopher's Stone. And so now we can use that to craft up ender pearls. It's a fairly simple craft. 1 Philosopher's Stone with 4 iron ingots gets you an ender pearl, and thankfully the Philosopher's Stone is a reusable item, so it doesn't get used up in crafting recipes. So we can do something like this and craft really as many ender pearls as we like. There are also quite a few other crafting recipes you can use here. We can turn gold into diamonds. Not that this is really worth it, because the gold costs 2048 EMC per ingot, and then 1 diamond is 8,192, which is 4 lots of 2048. So the EMC does kind of balance out here in terms of the raw cost. A few of these could potentially be useful, and the crafting of Aethernalis fuel is, I think, something that we are probably going to want to look at doing potentially before the end of today's stream, because I think there is a way that we could potentially get Creator Flight fairly early on in this pack using that Aethernalis fuel. But before we get too distracted, let's see if we can get this crafting terminal. So redstone we have, a crafting table we can of course make with some regular old planks. Fantastic. Then we need the modules, which are definitely going to be the most tedious part of this craft here. So to make the high extraction, I'll bookmark that, and the high retrieval module, we're going to need a fair bit of gold, some iron, and we're also going to need quite a few of these blank modules. So my question is, do we have any pretty pipes left over? We have 6 honors, and we do have quite a few stone slabs lying around as well. We're also going to need a ton of redstone for quite a few blocks here. So what I might do is I might also go ahead and get a little bit more in the way of redstone or pulverizing downstairs. One of the things I am going to do in today's stream as well is move a few of these machines upstairs, so we have like a line of kind of general purpose thermal expansion machines that we can use whenever we need to do one-off crafts, as opposed to having to interrupt our machines. Like, for example, I think I would like to set up a multi-servo press with a gearworking die that's just around so we can use it as when we need it, and we don't have to interrupt this setup right here. The redstone is coming in nice and quick. Let's take a look and see how many redstone blocks we can make. The answer is 10, and we need 4, 7, 9. That's fine. We do need a slime bowl, which could be potentially a little tricky. So it looks like we can make slime balls with lime dye and dough. Lime dye we can of course make with green dye and white dye. The white dye we can get from bone meal, and the green dye we can get from cactus, which of course we can purchase from our transmutation tablet. So let's go ahead and just smelt that up into some green dye. Then for the dough, that's going to be a little trickier. The dough here requires wheat flour and water, and wheat flour requires that we either crush or mill wheat. So the millstone here is definitely the easier of the two options. It requires 1 stone, 1 andesite casing, and 1 cogwheel. That's actually super cheap. And so if we just do something like this, strip the log, grab one of our many andesite alloys, which we can now make more easily using our new create setup that we made at the end of the last stream, we can then combine that up with a singular piece of stone and 1 regular cogwheel, and boom, there is our millstone. Much like with the mechanical mixer, this does require, actually I don't think it does. I was going to say that this requires a cogwheel, and that's kind of true. I think if I was to put this here, we could spin this cogwheel to spin this millstone, but I always forget that with the millstone, I think you can just spin the bottom of it. So if we were to take this hand crank and try and place it onto the bottom of the millstone, like that, we can spin the bottom to actually move the millstone. So the millstone is kind of controllable in 2 ways. You can either use the cogwheel or you can use a shaft or the hand crank. Now that's down, we just need to get another piece of wheat. We can then take that wheat and drop it into the top of the millstone, like so. If you press shift, it'll appear at the top there, so you know it's in. And then if we give this a quick crank, it should break that wheat down into wheat flour. Nice. And we can right click again. We got wheat flour and we also got an extra wheat seed. So now we can take that and craft it with a bucket of water, like so. That gets us some dough. I'm going to go ahead and do that twice just so we don't end up with random bits of wheat flour lying around. We can drop those back in the system. And then from there, we should be pretty much good to go. We'll take the green dye, craft it with the white dye. That gets us 2 lime dye, and 2 dough gets us 2 slime balls. From there, if we get ourselves some cobblestone and some planks, we should be able to craft up our first piston, which we can then, of course, upgrade to a sticky piston. And then hopefully we should be somewhere close to being able to craft this retrieval module. So we do need some more blank modules, which does require some iron nuggets. That's fine. We have those ready to go. So let's make at least 2 of those, although I think we might need a few more. We're definitely going to need more going forward. Again, that's the kind of thing that I would like to try and automate as we push forward here. It'd be nice to be able to automatically just request that those modules be made for us, as opposed to having to manually craft them every time we want to make more pretty pipes or every time we want to make a new extraction module or anything like that. So that's kind of also part of the goal. But there is the high retrieval module. The low retrieval module does require another piston. That's fine. It also does require some more redstone, which is also fine. And I think, chat, that we might actually have what it takes to make this happen. We totally do. Fantastic. So then, what are we missing? We're missing 2 diamonds, 2 blocks of iron, which we currently don't have. And I don't think we have any iron lying around in here. Never mind, we've got a little bit of iron. However, we do also have, I believe, our backlog, right? The whole idea over here is that we set this up in such a way that it would back up on iron. And so when we run into a situation like this where we need iron, we can just come over, take pretty much a full stack like that, and the system will just keep going as it was, which is pretty nifty. So we're back over here. Can we make that second block of iron? We definitely can. And then if we make 1 regular Minecraft chest, that should be everything for the item terminal. Never mind, I forgot about the 2 diamonds, which we do not have, but that's fine. We can get some nice and quickly through our pulverizer. Boom, there's the item terminal, and then boom, there is the crafting terminal. And so now all you have to do to set this up is place it down, like so, and then connect it to inventories. And so if I do this and I open up the crafting terminal, it now shows me all of the items that are in inventories connected to the crafting terminal via pipes. And so because there is a pipe connecting this terminal to this iron chest, we can see all the items in that chest from within the terminal. And if we wanted to, we could click on, for example, smooth stone tiles, click request, and that would pull one of the smooth stone tiles out of this chest and send it around into the crafting terminal. Pretty cool stuff. We can even take it one step further. And by the way, you can send items back to the chest by putting it in the return slot, and that will just send it back through the pipe to the chest. But what we can also do is if, for example, we wanted to make a chest, we could, let's say we have the oak planks in a connected chest, we could then search chest in JEI, shift click in the recipe for a chest, like so, and then you'll see here it says 0 on all these. If we go ahead and hit request, it's going to pull 8 planks from this chest here, put them into the crafting grid, and then we can just take the chest. Pretty cool stuff. So we can then send that back and we could use it to craft other stuff or whatever it is we want to do in the future. And of course, if we wanted to, we could do this and we could do this. And now we should have access to basically everything that is available to us all in one convenient location. We could even go ahead and add the sawdust in just for fun as well. And yeah, you can make these faster. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that we can do that currently in this mod pack because in order to make these faster, there are one of 2 ways you can do it. You can either add speed modules, again, low, medium, or high speed modules. However, all of these require sugar, which we do not get access to until we get here. Sugar is one of those items that does have an EMC and that we do unlock after making the tier 4 mechanical crystal, but we're a ways away from making that just yet. And so unfortunately, we can't speed that up with these. And the same is true for the pipe pressurizer. This drastically increases item speed in the entire pipe network, but requires redstone flux for each item transferred. This will be very useful because we do have a fair amount of power lying around, but it again requires these high speed increase modules, which require sugar, which we currently do not have access to. I think there is a potentially long and roundabout way in which we could potentially try and get some honey bottles to make sugar. Someone in the Twitch chat also suggested maybe trying to set up a mob farm to make sugar as well, but I think both of those options are going to be fairly slow and potentially not really worth it. But for the time being, I think this is fine. It's not the fastest in the world, but it should get the job done. And we can take this yet further, chat, because we can now use the Pretty Pipes mod to enable us to autocraft. All right, so I've talked to the Twitch chat a little bit, and maybe there are ways that we can get sugar here, because the pack creator does point out that you can get witches to spawn if we get a mob farm set up, and then the witches could drop sugar for us. Not a super high chance, but it is something that we could potentially look at doing. And we do have mini utilities installed, and mini utilities adds cursed earth, which is dirt that you put down that accelerates mobs spawning. We have blessed earth, which is dirt that you put down that accelerates passive mobs spawning. So it's going to increase, you're going to get a crazy amount of chickens, cows, pigs, horses, donkeys, etc. And then it also adds BLURSED earth, which is a mixture of blessed and cursed earth, which spawns everything. If you put this down, it will just spawn a ton of zombies, pigs, chickens, skeletons, witches, everything. Everything will be spawned. And so it might not be a terrible idea for us to set up a very basic BLURSED earth mob farm. In doing so, we can kind of kill two birds with one stone here, because we need the sugar to make our pipe network faster. But at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, I think we can get creative flight via the use of the Swift Wolf Rending Gale. This guy right here. It's a ring from ProjectE, and if you wear it, you get creative flight so long as you provide the ring with fuel. There are quite a few fuels that work. I know glowstone works. I think coal might work, and then Aeternalis fuel definitely works. The higher the EMC value of the fuel that you're using, the longer it will last. And so to make this, we do need some dark matter. The dark matter is quite expensive. It's 17,408 EMC per dark matter, but it just requires a block of diamonds and some Aeternalis fuel. And once we have one, we can just pull the rest of them out of the transmutation table because it does have an EMC value. Everything else here looks kind of fine. The iron band is made with just iron and a bucket of lava. And then the only thing we're missing is 4 feathers, which of course we should also get from our BLURSED earth mob farm, because not only is it going to spawn hostile mobs, it's also going to spawn passive mobs as well. So for this to work, we of course need some BLURSED earth. This is made in batches of 8. It's fairly easy, actually. It's 8 dirt with 1 semi-stable ingot. The semi-stable ingot is a diamond, an iron, and a stick. That is completely fine. I probably will go ahead and put some more diamond ore into the pulverizer, just so that we have more of that ready to go as when we need it. And look at that. Isaac of the Past did the same thing. Some extra diamonds ready to go as well there. And so if we do this, this, and this, like that, we can get our semi-stable ingot, and then we can craft that up with 8 dirt, which we can, of course, pull directly from our transmutation tablet to get ourselves the BLURSED earth. So now that we have the BLURSED earth, we could, of course, look at making more BLURSED earth if we want to make a bigger farm. But I think initially we might stick to the 8 here, because we have 2 problems that we now need to solve. The first is how we're going to kill the mobs, whether we're going to do that manually or whether we're going to do that automatically. And the second problem is how we get all of the mobs to a single point, because they're going to spawn on all 8 of the BLURSED earth blocks, but ideally we want them all to coalesce on one single block so that we can either kill them manually or try and kill them automatically. So for killing them automatically, the mini utilities mod does also add these spikes. They start at wooden spikes, work up to iron, then gold, then diamonds, and these do exactly what you'd expect. You can push mobs into these spikes, they will do damage, and the mobs will die and then drop their mob drops, which we can then look at collecting. We might as well, I think, probably just go for the diamond spikes, especially if we're only using 8 BLURSED earth here, because I think what we might do is we might set up a 1x8 farm. What I mean by that is just 8 blocks down in a row like this, at least initially, because the second problem, pushing the mobs, is quite a difficult one. We do have vector plates installed. These are pretty nifty. They're little conveyor belts that you can place down that mobs will still spawn on top of. The problem with the vector plates is that they require sugar. And right now we don't have access to sugar. What we might end up doing is potentially replacing whatever setup we use initially with vector plates once we have enough sugar to make them. But initially what I think we might have to do is resort back to using the encased fan from Create, which I believe can push entities. Yeah, it says here you can push or pull entities. And so we could potentially take this and use it as a way of pushing mobs down this single 1x8 block path. That we can have them pushed all the way down into some spikes, and then we could potentially use some form of item collector. I think we have the vacuumulator from thermal expansion. This is not too difficult to make, and this essentially works as an item collector that can collect items within a fairly large range. And so I think if we put all of that together, we should be able to set up a BLURSED Earth farm, which will hopefully get us not only the sugar, a little bit of the sugar needed for making vector plates and also for speeding up our Pretty Pipes network, but it will also hopefully get us the feathers that we need to make the Swift Dwarf Surrendingale and get creative flight. So we do need to find a place to put this mob farm. And I think now that we have access to ender pearls, what we might be able to do is get ourselves some elevators, these right here. And these are going to make it a lot easier for us to set up a lower platform to the base. The elevators, we need 2 of them. They're made with 1 ender pearl and then 8 wool. Wool we can get from string, and string we can craft from industrial hemp fiber, which we get from industrial hemp seeds. So we do have industrial hemp seeds lying around in here. So if we take some of those and plant them like this, we should then be able to grab some more bone meal these up and break the top. That gets us the industrial hemp fiber, which does surprisingly have its own EMC value. And so we'll just go ahead and drop that in there, at which point we can get as much hemp as we like, craft that into really as much string as we like, and then craft that string into as much wool as we like. We are looking for 16 wool. And there we go, there's 26 wool, a little bit of an overshoot there, but that's fine. And so now, if we can get 1 more ender pearl, which we can do with 4 more iron and our philosopher's stone, we can then craft up 2 elevators. And the idea here is that we can use these to very easily navigate from one floor to the next. The simple premise, for those who do not know, is that you can place 1 elevator above another elevator, like this, so you can place 1 below another one, I guess, and then you can very quickly move from 1 elevator to the next. So if you jump on the bottom one and you press spacebar, it's going to teleport you up to the elevator above it. If you're on an elevator and you want to move down, you just press shift. So spacebar and shift, and you can move very quickly up and down between 2 elevators. Back in the old days, there used to be a 16 block limit on these. I think in newer versions, you can really use these as far apart as you like. I could be mistaken on that. There might be some kind of limit, but I think it's quite far. So we should, in this case then, be able to set up a lower platform to our base and then use these elevators to very quickly move between them. And I think a lower level is going to be worthwhile here because I don't particularly love this level here with the random bits of cobblestone and stone that we have. And so what I might do is get some more smooth stone tiles and build a new platform that's maybe 7 or maybe 9 blocks below the initial platform, maybe move some of this stuff down, drop down our elevator, and then we can set up some space for our mob farm. Okay, so a little bit of building work later, and we now have a new platform down underneath the base. I've moved the magma crucible and the magmatic dynamos. We've got a nice bit of space either side for more of these should we want them. We could also build them upwards as well. We could have a whole wall of them in the future if we wanted. Although unlocking this tier 3 questline does now give us access to uraninite, which can be used in the future to work on power, which is a mod that's going to allow us to get, you guessed it, a lot of power. So real quick, let's take our elevator, and if we can find the center of this island here, I'm going to replace the crafting table up on the surface here with the white elevator. So we'll move this crafting table elsewhere for the time being, and we'll replace it with this guy. So now we can press shift, we can go down, we can press spacebar, and we can go back up. Nice. People have been telling me in the Twitch chat to make a metal crafting table. This one from Engineers Decor. Apparently this is, if I hit request, crafting table not found. So if I send this back, oh, I probably could have just put it in here actually. I probably could have clicked it into the terminal. But now if I click request, it's going to request one of each of these, and we should just be able to craft it. Nice. So I think this kind of works like a crafting station from Tinker's Construct, in that you can put the items in the crafting table and then leave them in there. That's pretty nifty. Yeah, so we can just kind of leave them. If we forget something, we can go find it. We don't have to re-put in every item. And there's also an inventory here as well, which I'm probably just going to end up filling with junk, but is nice to have nonetheless. So now that we have this new area on the lower level of the base, we need to get this mob farm up and running. Real quick, do I have any torches left lying around? We do. I will take all 4 of those, please, and we'll try and light up this bottom area just a little bit. But we need to build the mob farm. And in order to do that, we need to build, I think I'm going to build it here, by the way, left to right. And we're going to have it just 8 blocks wide, like we said before. So I think we'll do... Oh, I mean, it's awkward because the platform's an odd number wide, so I'm kind of tempted to make another batch and do it 9 wide. So maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like that. So that's going to be the BLURSED Earth, and then we'll surround that with other blocks to close all the mobs in, and then we'll have, I think, an encased fan from Create on one side that's pushing the mobs over, and then on this side we will have our spikes and our accumulator to kill the mobs and collect their drops. Now, in terms of boxing them in, we could use all kinds of stuff. We could just use stone or cobblestone to box them in, but Mini Utilities does also add dark glass, this stuff right here, which is pretty nifty in that it allows you to see through into the mob farm so you can see what is spawning and what's not, but it doesn't allow any light to pass through, so it's not going to prevent any of the mobs from spawning. It's fairly easy to make. It's 1 black dye and then 8 black stained glass, and the black stained glass is made again with black dye and regular glass, and with Create, you can actually make black dye by milling charcoal or coal. And so given that we have a few stacks of coal, once we eat a little bit of our infinite steak, which I have put away, foolishly, we can hopefully make this jump right here. Fantastic. At which point we can drop in our stack of coal and then quickly grind that down into black dye. Speaking of which, we are going to need a fair bit of glass if we're going to make that work. Thankfully, we do have a good bit of gravel from all of our cobblestone pulverizing. And of course, we can pulverize yet more gravel down into sand for glass, even though we do have a little bit of glass lying around. Yeah, we got 26, but I think we're going to need much, much more. Now, I have picked these machines up. Obviously, they're no longer down on that janky cobblestone platform. And what I think I might do is I might get rid of the coke oven here. We might also end up moving the crafting terminal as well, because I do want to potentially look at auto crafting with machines at some point today. Now, that did get rid of my pickaxe, and we're taking a fair few detours here, chat, but there are a few options in terms of replacing this pickaxe. We do have the ability to make dark matter or red matter pickaxes from ProjectE, and then we also have access to the destruction pickaxe from Mini Utilities. This does require obsidian, which maybe we don't have just yet. However, the dark matter and red matter pickaxes are surprisingly cheap from an EMC perspective. So what I might do, given that we have to do it anyway, is I might get some dark matter. If we do this, we can get alchemical coal, which we can then just instantly place into our transmutation tablet and then just grab even more of it and then replace the coal here with this. That gets us Mobius fuel. Mobius fuel we can put directly in and again take it out, let's say a stack of it. And then let's put the Mobius fuel in like this. That gets us Eternalis fuel, which you guessed it, we can also put in and then take a stack of it. And then the Eternalis fuel is what we need to make the dark matter. The dark matter is a block of diamonds and Eternalis fuel. Like this. And again, we can drop that in and then take, you guessed it, a stack of it. That is quite expensive. That was like $1 million plus EMC for a stack of dark matter, but it is doable. And then red matter is Eternalis fuel plus dark matter. Again, once we have one, we can drop it in, and we can not quite afford a stack of it because a stack of it is over 2 million EMC. If we put that back in, can we? Not quite, 49. So it's very expensive, but it is doable. And we don't need that much of it to get a red matter pickaxe. In fact, we need 3 dark matter and 2 diamonds, which we have. And of course, this is the crafting table now, so let's do this and this. That gets us a dark matter pickaxe. And then for the red matter pickaxe, we just need 3 red matter and 1 dark matter. That is a fair amount of EMC. It's 175,000 just for the red matter alone. But if we do that, we get the red matter pick, which is, I think, I don't think it has a durability. I think it just lasts forever. And I think it's also pretty good. I think we can press a certain key. It is V by default, which is what I thought, but if I press V, it doesn't do anything. So it might be the case that we need to change that or change whatever else is bound to V, such as all of these here. Now if we press V, there we go. And it's a pretty nice and quick pickaxe, which I like. There's also a mode switch, I believe, that we can do. If I go back to Project and click Category, there's Change Mode, which is set to G by default. If I press that, yeah, so there's 3 tall shot, 3 wide shot, 3 long shot, and standard mode. So this, I believe, just changes the kind of area of effect that this breaks. I'm going to leave it on standard mode for now because I do only want to break single blocks at a time. But this, I think, will just last forever. I don't think it has any durability, which is very nice indeed. So let's see then. I didn't mean to break all of these smooth tiles here, but let's go ahead and break the remainder of these two, which is the whole reason we were here in the first place. Let's get our pulverizer and our induction smelter down, and then let's see if we can't connect those up to our pre-existing power line, which I think we should be able to do with relative ease here, because our power is now fairly close to this new machine setup. And then we can drop our gravel in there to get us a little bit more sand. So while we wait for that, let's do a little bit of millstoning here. That's going to get us the black dye. We don't need a ton of black dye here. In fact, do I not have any black dye? I could have swore I just dropped some coal in there, but nevertheless, let's do that again. We'll do something like this, and we'll give that a quick grind. Once we have some black dye, 10 honestly might be enough. We can then look at using this to make some of the dark glass. So the dark glass, as we saw a second ago, is just a regular standard Minecraft glass that we're going to craft with black dye to make black stained glass. And then from there, it's just black stained glass plus black dye to get the dark glass. And then if we wanted to take this one step further, there is also dark ethereal glass. The dark ethereal glass is actually made differently, and I probably shouldn't have made the dark glass that we did make, but the dark ethereal glass is interesting because it uses ethereal glass, which I believe is a glass that you can walk through. So it's made with a semi-stable ingot, which is an iron, a stick, and a diamond. Let me quickly grab one of each of those and see if we can't make that happen. I think it's iron at the top and diamond at the bottom. It is. From there, we can surround that with glass to get the ethereal glass, and then we can use that with a black dye to get dark ethereal glass, which I believe is glass that is not only dark, but also glass that we can walk through, but that mobs cannot walk through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If we were to start putting that glass down like this and put it on either side of the mob farm, can I break this or does it get destroyed? I do get it back. Interesting. Because we could just put it on the front like this, but I believe that, yeah, we can walk through this glass, but regular hostile mobs, or even passive mobs, cannot. That's what ethereal glass does. This also has the benefit of being dark ethereal glass, so not only does it allow us to pass through and mobs not to pass through, but it also allows light not to pass through, and therefore is going to allow mobs to spawn in here just fine. So I think what we'll do is we'll try and get enough dark ethereal glass to cover the front of this mob farm. And then we can look at just filling in the back, getting our encased fan, and getting our spikes, and getting our vacuumulator. Alright, so we've made some more dark ethereal glass, and this is almost completely done here. The final few steps are for us to obviously get down the BLURSED earth. We need to get our spikes, we need to get the encased fan. I did also make, by the way, a diamond wand here. Obviously we have a ton of diamonds now. This is super easy to make, and it made putting down this platform here significantly easier because we could just build the entire strips one at a time using the construction wand, which is super nifty. So now that we have done that though, let's see about getting two things. We'll start with the spikes because I think they're going to be the easier of the things that we need. So if we want to make diamond spikes, we need some diamond rods and a diamond plate. None of that seems too difficult. How many diamonds do we have? The answer to that question would appear to be 0, and I don't believe we're currently making any more. We're not. That is fine. Let me get some diamond ore out of our transmutation tablet, and let's drop that into the pulverizer. We can then, of course, use some of the 3 hours and 3 minutes that we have in our time in a bottle here to make this quite a fair bit faster. Unfortunately, the thermal expansion machines are limited on how much power you can input into them, and so if you try and go too fast, you'll see that here, the power is now becoming a problem. I don't believe that's because we're not producing enough power. If we go down here, we probably are producing enough power to make this work. I think you'll see we have power here that is being drained, but we had it. The problem is that the thermal expansion machine can only accept power so fast, unfortunately, at least without the use of one of these flux augments. So for example, the stabilizer flux augment here doubles the RF transfer capability of the machine, and then the high flux augment multiplies the RF transfer limit by 6x. However, almost 2 stacks of diamonds here is going to be more than enough for us, and so if we just drop the rest of the diamond ore away, we should be able to craft 2 of these diamonds with the hammer to make the plate, and then I think the diamond rods were just something like this. They were indeed. Let's get 3 of those. Not the most efficient way of doing that. We could have used our thermal expansion machines to make that a little bit more efficiently, but It's not like we don't have a ton of EMC ready to go. And so what we should be able to do now is place these spikes down at the end of this corridor. So we're going to go ahead and break that piece of tile. And we're going to put this probably right about here, like that. And then we'll just have the BLURSED earth all the way down to the back. I, of course, forget that I can walk through this, even though I just mentioned it mere moments ago. But this should work just fine. And then, of course, the vacuumulator is what we're going to use to allow us to collect all of these items. So let us see. Can I get a hopper? Looks like I totally can. Everything else here we might actually have, apart from maybe a redstone servo. Let's see if we can't get a redstone servo. I'm pretty sure that we definitely can. Again, you can make the pipes significantly faster, so the items come in almost instantly, but to do that requires sugar, which is, of course, what we are working on. And there we go. There is our vacuumulator. So if we were to place this down, this guy is going to collect items nearby. If I drop some diamonds on the floor, how close does it have to be for the vacuumulator to collect it? Not super close, which is nifty. I don't know what the exact range on this is. I'm going to put it... I was going to put it here, but I might actually just put it right here, like that. Chat's telling me it's 7 blocks is the radius. I assume that in this version, we might actually be able to use the integral component to make this faster, because it took a second there to collect the diamond. But if I put the component in, does that make it faster? Maybe, but not noticeably so. My next question is, if I drop a couple of things down, does it pick all of them up simultaneously? Kind of. It does them in little batches by the looks of it, but it does look like most of the stuff kind of gets picked up fairly quickly. Yeah, that's not too bad, actually. I think that's fine. We can set up the mob farm. If the mob farm produces more mob drops and this can deal with, then we can look at making this faster in some way, shape, or form. But for now, I think this is completely fine. And then we can, of course, extract from this vacuumulator round and into wherever we want to send all of the mob drops when they are eventually made. And so now the only thing we're missing, chat, is the encased fan, which isn't too difficult to make. We, of course, need the standard andesite casing, which again is boom and boom. Fantastic. We then need a propeller, which is 4 iron plates and an andesite alloy. Again, that's not going to be a problem for us. We can make the plates using the hammer that we have, and of course we have a bunch of andesite alloy lying around. So once again, if we do this and this, we can get 1, 2, 3, 4 plates, and then we should be able to fairly easily make ourselves a propeller. And then from there, just one standard Minecraft shaft gets us the encased fan. Now, of course, in order for this to actually work, we are going to need to automate the production of rotational energy, because although we could go upstairs, we could grab the hand crank, and we could crank this manually to push the mobs, we are probably going to want it automated. Now, the trouble with the encased fan, I'm interested actually as to how far this is going to go, because if we hover over the encased fan here, most of the items from Create do have this ponder option. You'll see it says hold W to ponder. If you hold W, it shows you in a pretty nifty animation here how the fan works. And I do believe at some point here it tells us that the power that you put into the fan doesn't make it process items any faster, which is something we'll get to later on in the pack, but it does mean that the fan blows further. So the higher the speed of the rotational energy going into the fan, the further it will blow. We need to make sure that ours blows far enough to get to the end of the platform. You'll see here, the speed of the fan does not affect the processing speed, only the range. And so what we can do is we can go and take our crank here to kind of get a bit of an idea of how far this is going to go. If we break a little bit of this glass here, because it's very dark, I'm just kind of wanting to get an idea maybe of how far this goes. So you can right click to turn the crank one way, and then you can shift right click to turn it in a different direction. It looks like it goes quite far, actually. I don't know if it's quite going far enough. It doesn't look like it is. It looks like it's going to about here. And so we could potentially do with more than 256 stress units, which is good to know, because when we're choosing our option for how we're going to produce power, we need to kind of have an idea in mind as to how much power we need. People are pointing out that we can drop an item, actually, and it'll tell us, or give us an idea here, because if we now rotate this, we'll see how far this goes. It does take a little bit of time, and of course, using this hand crank is quite expensive in terms of hunger, which is why I'm taking damage here. But I think that that has hit the end of where it's going to go. And it got collected. It did get collected by the vacuumulator, which I guess is good. But obviously, that's not going to work for the mobs. Real quick, let me turn this off by going to redstone control and clicking high. That's going to mean that this requires a redstone signal to work. If we try that one more time. So yeah, this is about as far as it went. So we do need a faster rotation going into the encased fan. I think that the water wheel only does up to 256 stress units. So it's similar to the hand crank, whereas the windmill, you can kind of expand exponentially to produce a large amount of stress units. So I think we'll try then and get the windmill bearing here and see if we can't use that to get a windmill going. So the windmill bearing requires stone, shaft, and a slab. That is, thankfully, incredibly easy. So we'll take one stone, we'll take one slab, and we'll take one shaft. Let's combine all of those into the windmill bearing. And then again, much like with the fan here, we can press W on the windmill bearing, and it will show us how this works. So it says windmill bearings attached to the blocks in front of them. Create movable structures with the help of superglue. I don't think we need superglue. If enough sail-like blocks are included, it can act as a windmill. And then you can right-click it to activate the windmill bearing and provide a rotational force. So as janky as it's going to look, if I were to put this here, and by here I of course mean ideally facing the other way, if we were to put this here, and then we were to put this here, like that, that should provide rotational force directly to the encased fan. And then from here, I think what we should be able to do is place basically any block on the front here, and then if we make sail, so the white sail here is made with andesite alloy, wool, and sticks. That seems fine. Let's head back up here. Andesite alloy we have, wool we have, and sticks we have, I believe. So we should, in theory, be able to just go ahead and request a few of these. I think I can just request the same thing a few times, and I'll just put in multiple of the same ingredient. And the idea here is that we can take these sails and place them onto these blocks here. These blocks can be anything, by the way. They don't have to be stone. Anything will work. Now, they do have to go down the right way, which I do wrong every single time. I think this will work. Oh, we need at least 8 sails. That's fine. So if I do this, that's 6. And then if we make this one longer, and I do maybe this and this, that totally works. Okay, so that's producing 512 stress units. I thought we needed stone all the way through. It turns out we do not. This just requires the one stone. That's fine. So this here is a very bizarre wind turbine, but this is producing 512 stress units. Now, there's a few problems here. The first problem is that it's spinning the wrong way. That's fixable with a gearbox. This is going to allow us to rotate the direction of transfer. But the second problem is that it's still not doing what we want it to do. And that's because stress units don't necessarily correlate. You'll see here that this fan is only using 2 stress units, but the windmill bearing is producing a maximum of 512. That's because this can support up to 512 stress units being used, but in order for the encased fan to use that many stress units, the shaft going into the fan has to be spinning much, much faster. So what we're going to do is we're going to break the windmill bearing, and we're going to tear this down temporarily, trying to make sure that we get every single one of these frames back. And basically what we need to do here is we need to set up a system that's going to allow us to increase the speed of the shaft power coming in. In fact, even with this, yeah, you'll see here that it was going quite far, but it's only using 64 out of the 256 stress units. It's not using all of them. So we can make this faster using cogwheels. So if we were to go and grab some of our big cogwheels and small cogwheels, what we can do here is we can use a combination of big cogwheels and small cogwheels to make this faster. So what we can do here is we can have a big cogwheel down, and then we can have a small cogwheel behind it, and then we can connect that small cogwheel diagonally to a big cogwheel like this. And basically what that's going to do is when you transfer the power diagonally, the cogwheel here is going to go at a certain speed, but then transferring that to a smaller cogwheel diagonally is going to cause this cogwheel to spin faster, but then the large cogwheel connected to that small cogwheel is going to spin at the same speed as the small cogwheel, not the large cogwheel. And so if you do this again, we go back by 1 and we say go down diagonally like this, we can keep doing this to increase the speed at which the shaft rotates. And so if I were to do this, you'll see that now this spinning is a lot slower than this spinning. This one is spinning much faster. And over here, this is using the full 256 stress units. And so I think it's probably pushing a lot closer to the end of the spawner. In fact, look at that. It's going all the way to the end, which is fantastic. And so basically now what we want to do is get rid of that and see about connecting our wind turbine to this large cogwheel. I think what we might do, just to make it look a little nicer so that we don't have a wind turbine that's kind of protruding off the edge of the platform, is we might look at getting our first gearbox. These can be used for changing the direction of rotation, but they can also be used to change the shaft direction from horizontal to vertical. So to make this, we need 4 cogwheels and 1 andesite casing. So that is fine. We can get another andesite casing very easily. And then boom, with 4 cogwheels, we get our first gearbox. Chat is right in that we don't need this last big cogwheel here. This is not doing anything because there's no cogwheel connected to it. This one would do the trick. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to craft this gearbox into a vertical gearbox, place that here, and then that's going to allow us to place the windmill bearing directly on top of it like that. Ideally, though, we do want that windmill bearing pointing in a different direction. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this back, and I'm going to do something like this, because I want the windmill bearing pointing up like that. Fantastic. And then we'll leave this here, and we'll connect the sails, just like we did before, back to this guy. And we'll do it on the left and right, I guess. So get rid of this, and then let's do you and you. And then if we nerd pull up a little bit here with some of our dirt, we should be able to put down the remaining 6 sails like this. And this should still produce the same 512 stress units. But now, when we right click to turn this on, that stress is going to get passed down and around into here. Now it looks like the windmill is a lot slower than the hand crank. And so we actually need a significantly larger number of big cogwheels and small cogwheels, because we need to get this up to 256 stress units. It was at 2 before, so we have managed to do some amount of work here, but we've not done enough. And so I guess once again, we're going to just have to tear this down and see about recreating it. Okay, so this ended up being quite the abomination, but this does or should work. So we've had to go out quite a bit. Basically, I think that the stress units of the encased fan here double, or basically the speed doubles with every diagonal that you have. So right here, we've got 1 diagonal, we've got 2 diagonals, we've got 3, 4. Back there is 5, that's 6. And this is 7 diagonals of rotational kind of doubling. And so if we were to now go ahead and I shouldn't have used gravel there, Isaac. That was a foolish mistake. The gravel's going to fall. If we were to go ahead and try and replace down the windmill bearing, which may or may not go down the right way there, it's not. We could potentially look at making the wrench from Create. This is probably a worthwhile investment because the wrench is going to allow us to rotate that windmill bearing without having to place it down perfectly every single time. So let's take this and let's see if we can't use that to right click that. Perfect. We can then, we could have left the dirt there. That would have worked just as well as smooth stone tiles. Really, it doesn't matter which block you use. But now, if we place down all of our 8 sails, this should be accelerating fast enough to make this all work. So let's chomp on our infinite stick. And then let's right click on this guy. That's spinning. It is going the wrong way, which is not ideal. However, I think if we get 1 more gearbox, we can rotate that and make it work. So let's do this. Let's do this. Let's grab our andesite alloy. Let's do this. Let's break it. And then can we get a gearbox? Only if we have 4 cogwheels, which we don't, but that's fine. We just need planks. And planks we can get. So we'll take some planks. We'll craft that with the shaft to make more cogwheels. We need 4 of those. I'm going to make exactly 4 and keep that last shaft just in case I need it. And then gearbox-wise, I can do something like this. And if we place the gearbox down over here. And by the way, once you have the wrench, you can shift right click with the wrench to pick up anything from create without having to break it manually. We can do that. That's going to rotate this to point the right way. And now that should be pushing far enough to kill any mobs that would spawn. And so if we place this down, get rid of the bottom level of tiles, we should finally, chat, be ready to go here. If we replace that with BLURSED earth, which I think is not quite right, because I think I need to have one tile here, because I only have 8 BLURSED earth. But let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that. That's going to get nice and dark, and then we should see both passive and hostile mobs spawning, getting sent over, getting killed, and then as they get killed, they drop their wares, and their wares should make their way over into the vacuumulator as soon as I turn it back on. Nice. Okay, cool. And so now we kind of just need some chickens for feathers. That sound is horrible, but we are getting gold, which is interesting, and hearts of diamonds. But it's feathers that we're after, and also sugar. Now, I do believe that what we can do is we can use the time in a bottle here to accelerate the BLURSED earth. It's going to cost a fair bit of our time, but if we do that, we're going to spawn a fair few more mobs that are then going to get killed a lot faster, and are going to start producing more drops for us. We have our first witch. We didn't get any sugar from the witch. I don't know if the higher tier spikes do anything, but we can't make netherite spikes anywhere, unfortunately, because we don't get access to netherite again until we have unlocked this chapter here, which is also the same time we unlock sugarcane. So yeah, this is working. It's doing its thing. We do have the muffler mod, so you can go in here and mute certain sounds. So this is basically an entire list of all of the sounds that we can currently hear. So if we type in skeleton, the skeleton hurt sound is that bone rattling sound that we hear. I do not know what that screeching sound was. Could be a chatter. I'm not quite sure what mob it is. But essentially, you can mute individual sounds here, and you can also just change their volume. So, for example, if we go up here, we have this chest opening and closing sound. If we go here, you'll see it says chest close, chest open. If we mute both of those, no sound at all. But if we wanted to, we could just set them to, let's say, 30% volume, and now they'll still be there, but just a lot quieter than they were previously. You can also turn them all the way down, and the sound is still there, but just very, very quiet. I don't mind the chest sound, so we can leave that unmuted, but it's pretty nifty, and it means that you can change certain sounds that are maybe too loud or too quiet to be a little less loud, or gone completely. Now, it does seem like we're mostly just getting hostile mobs here. I don't see us getting a ton of passive mobs. That's actually a baby enderman, which is interesting. We did get an ender pearl there. But yeah, not seeing us getting a ton of passive mobs, which is not ideal. What I think I will do just before we wrap up here, though, is I will get, I think, another iron chest. And that's going to involve me quickly getting some more planks here. If we get another iron chest, we can upgrade that to a gold chest, and then maybe through to a diamond chest, and then use that, temporarily at least, for holding all of our mob drops. I say temporarily because I think what we'll probably look at working on in the next stream is setting up a better storage drawer system to allow us to connect up a lot of our items more easily than just this one chest here to our crafting terminal, and also just giving us more space to hold all of our goods as well. So we'll take some gold. Can we make the gold chest? We totally can. Last stream we made the upgrades to upgrade previous chests to higher tiers. You can also just craft the higher tier chests right out of the gate if you have all of the resources to craft them. The only thing we're missing here for the diamond chest is some glass, which we now have. And so boom. I don't think that the crystal chest or the obsidian chest are any bigger than the diamond chest. The crystal chest is just transparent, so you can kind of see what's inside of it. And then the obsidian chest, I think, is just explosion proof. So I think the diamond chest is the largest chest that we can make. And then from there, we can just take a basic logistical transporter, place that down, set that to extract using our configurator. Again, shift and scroll, make sure it's on the configurate setting, and then shift right click twice to set that to extract. And that's going to pull all those items down and around into this chest. And that's going to hopefully give us a ton of mob drops between streams. We'll hopefully come back to a fair few of them. We might have to look at potentially making some blessed earth. We'll see what we get. If we don't get enough feathers to make the Swiftwolf's Rending Gale, then we might have to look at making some Blessed Earth in the next stream. It's not hard, it's just 1 block of iron and 8 dirt, and then that Blessed Earth is going to allow us to just exclusively spawn passive mobs, which I think it's this guy who's screaming, by the way. I don't know what that is, but the Blessed Earth is going to allow us to spawn exclusively passive mobs, which should make getting chickens much easier, and therefore should also make getting that Swiftwolf's Rending Gale super easy as well. So we took quite a bit of a detour in today's stream. Apparently it's a Stoneling is the name of the mob. I'm going to mute that because that screech, that blood-curdling scream is horrible. But we took a bit of a detour today. I wasn't quite expecting to set up this mob farm here or set up this very elaborate windmill contraption. But we do now have this over here, and we'll just tidy up a little bit by getting rid of these blocks. But this is working, and we do have a passive mob farm going. Once we get enough sugar, we can look at replacing this here with vector plates. 8 vector plates will do the job just fine. That does require 4 sugar. At that point, we can take this whole setup and move it elsewhere. Create does have an option later on down the line to make a rotation speed controller. That's this thing right here. It is a little pricey. It is going to require us getting some deployers and some more cogwheels and some gold plates and doing some repetitive crafting. We also need brass and all kinds of stuff that we don't currently have, but once you get the rotational speed controller, you can then do away with these big cogwheel, small cogwheel setups, and instead just use the rotational speed controller to set the speed of the shaft, which is much, much easier and much, much less space consuming, which is definitely going to be more useful. But again, eventually we're going to get rid of the encased fan here, replace it with vector plates, and then maybe take this windmill and use it to automate the process of mixing manually, because we need to use the mixer to automate the production of the regular mechanical crystal. But yeah, I think next time we'll come back, we will look at, hopefully, replacing this with vector plates. We'll also look at getting that Swiftwolf's Rending Gale to give us creative flight, and I think we'll also look at finally setting up some auto-crafting with the crafting terminal, which is what I was initially planning on doing today before we got a little bit distracted. And then from there, we can use that auto-crafting to help us automate the process of making the Tier 2 mechanical crystal. And then, of course, from there, we can move on to the Tier 3 mechanical crystal, the improved mechanical crystal, and onward and forward into the rest of the mod pack. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and ramp up today's stream there.